And we're recording. Hey folks, my name is Jessica Mashkovich and this is One Take with Jess. My guest today is Max Greb. He is known as @Max the Meat Guy on all social medias. Is there one social media that you're not on?
You know, I haven't really done Twitter yet, but pretty much across the board, it's Max the Meat Guy.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sure. Pretty impressive. I'm going to rattle off some of your numbers here on social media. TikTok, you have what, 1.1 million followers? Not too shabby. Instagram has 182,000. Twitter, you're still, building it. And Facebook has like 26,000. I can imagine there's lots of different target audiences in that mix.
Yeah, and also YouTube has been a new focus over the past month or two.
Oh, and YouTube. I'm sorry, I forgot YouTube. How many people are on there?
Something like 175,000.
It's kind of sad that we define ourselves with the follower counts. You and I were just...
I was like,
icky. Yeah. But yet every day you think about it and you're like, how can I get more people? How can I get more people's attention?
Yeah, I think that's part of the focus, but really, since I'm making videos, the true, what I'm grasping is attention and like authentic audiences, and follower count, and a lot, like there's people that have 4 million followers on TikTok, but their audience on the actual videos is quite low and the engagement is quite low. So I like TikTok how it's sort of an even playing field where even if you have tons of followers or a small amount of followers, the quality of your videos has to always be consistently high to retain those people. So that's why, subscriber counts, all these things don't really matter, because if you're not putting out consistently great stuff, they're not even going to watch it. So it's not really the barometer that I hold myself to as much as, how much are people actually liking the videos that I'm creating? Yeah,
that's good. And I wish, everyone thought that way. Advertising not agencies, do they even exist? Advertisers look at, how big your audience is, strategic relationships, monetizing what you've done. They all look at those counts. So it's, you got to keep them up, keep them high, keep grinding to do that. But you know what, before we dive into you, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the sponsor of our show. We are currently sponsored by Kona Benelli. They are the creators of the best wearable blanket on the planet called the Throby, which is perfect for outdoor dining and indoor everything right now, especially. As a result of your purchases, they give blankets to shelter dogs in need, which is a wonderful thing. They've done it all across the country. And you can go find that at throby.com or follow @Kona Benelli on social media. My guest today, of course, Max, can be followed at Max the Meat Guy on all social media. So I just wanted to put that up there for everyone, just in case people don't listen all the way through to the end. I just want to make sure that we all get a little bit out of this conversation and people can like jump on and start interacting with you and all that you do. So let's get to what you do, because when we first started this conversation before recording, we were just shooting around things and I was telling you how involved I am in so many different facets of things. And I see you are too. So is cooking your main function, or is this just a side hustle, passion project? And, we can completely talk about the whole cooking side of things and how you got into it and who even let you in the kitchen.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. It started as more of a side hustle, definitely been a passion for probably the past 6 years. The first time I really got serious about it was in college. I'm 28 right now, so close to 10 years ago. And it was a progressive thing. I started just doing it just to, have food to eat, cheap meals type thing. And slowly but surely, it became more of a, on weekends, cooking for friends. I got really interested in, starting food related businesses right after college. Didn't really get any. The primary thing for me was a beef jerky company. I'm sure we'll go in a bunch of different directions with like how the progression happened, but that became a massive focus of mine. So while I had my day job and doing all my normal things, that was the passion project. And through that, between meeting people, learning different processes, like getting involved in branding work, design, just the interest really continued to build. And my knowledge of cooking also started to expand, as opposed to just, cooking for friends on the weekends. From 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., I was like trying to make beef jerky and, working with friends on starting their soda brand and all these little things that built off each other and gave me a pretty good, general understanding until, 6 months ago, I got really serious about it with the content.
That's amazing. So was this born out of any particular college projects, or these interests in the beef jerky and the soda thing happened after school just as an interest? Did someone come to you, or was that your idea to start the beef jerky? Seems like meat has been a very big part of your life.
It's becoming that way, which is funny because I love vegetables. Like, I don't really tell people this often, but I love all food, It's definitely the niche that I've focused on because it's where, I don't know, like meat science and food science, I just find the meat space quite interesting because there's just so much you can do with it. And it's quite versatile. There's lots of different ways to go as opposed to, like, I don't know, vegetables type stuff. But I love all foods. So I did kind of put myself in that box of Max the Meat Guy.
Yeah. And you went prehistoric, not historic, but, with the whole beef jerky side of things, that was, how beef started to its preservation its preservation aspect of how people kept their meats and dried it out and salted it and survival mode.
There's a couple elements of beef jerky that I really liked. The primary is that it's such a shelf stable product. So it's 12 months, or now it's like 16 months that these products have shelf lives. So it gives you a pretty long sales cycle, and it's just a unique product. The margins aren't super, super high, but it's a premium product, and it stays good for a really long time. So that just kind of interested me from a business standpoint. But I guess taking it one step back before that, a big part of my life has been China and living in China. So in college, I studied abroad in Beijing. I went to Northeastern University, so it's a 5-year program. And at year 3, you have an opportunity to either travel or do a co-op, they call it, which is going to work at a business for 6 months, kind of like an internship, but like on steroids, I guess, just a little bit longer, more in depth. So I decided to go to Beijing, studied abroad there, spent I spent a full year in China at that point. Started a business as well. And that became a huge part of my life. I did come back to finish school, but I kind of did it like remotely and came back for certain things, but pretty much stayed in China, like starting at year 3 in college. And the influence of China and the entrepreneurial mindset of a lot of people, a lot of expats living out there really reflected on me. And I attest a lot of my interests and like pursuits on that China lifestyle, I would say.
That's interesting. Do you speak any Chinese, or the business community mainly speaks in English?
In my business, it's mostly English, but I do speak Chinese. I can get around and do pretty much, it's been a year and like almost a year and a half since I've been there, which is crazy. But I've been taking Chinese for a while, and day to day, I can get around.
That's great. So that experience, did that fuel your passion for cooking, or the business that you started over in China was a different side of business, not cooking related? But did you find that your passion continued to bubble and brew in China for cooking?
Yeah, that's where a lot of my professional life has been lived, like probably from 21 to 27, 26 or 27. So that is definitely where a lot of it grew. And it was kind of a cool, for me, a lot of the stuff I was cooking was Western, but a lot of the influences were Asian. whether it's going to restaurants or the different supermarkets I'd go to. So I had this like Western perspective to a lot of what I was used to making and like comfortable with, but with all these influences. So like, you know, garlics, ginger, and soy sauce are like the three staples in Chinese cooking. And I found myself consistently using that trio, or at least one of them, even if I was doing like smoking a brisket or like just different things that might be more Western. So I definitely got a lot of those influences. And like cooking in China is awesome too. Like it's everything is super cheap. You have access to crazy vegetables, all sorts of unique things. And if you have an open mind, it can be a really fun place to really explore anything, but definitely cooking, I would say.
That's great. The markets that you went to, any of them, I don't want to call the word wet market because that has like bad connotations, but did you frequent any of those? What does that really look like?
Yeah, and I thought that too as I started talking about it. And I didn't really understand a negative connotation until I had mentioned it to somebody like a few months ago, because I was going to make some content about it. I didn't really make the connection because when I think of wet market, it's not related. There's zero negative association whatsoever. Like I can see how there's slightly different standards compared to like a stop and shop when, you know, cleanliness stuff, but it's not, people have been doing it for probably, I would assume hundreds and thousands of years, that style of market. But I don't know, it's like tons of people, you know, not selling you stuff, but it's like kind of a bubbly place. You walk in, it starts with the vegetable section, and there's just all sorts, and it's super organized, looks really nice, all sorts of vegetables. Like you'll have 6 people all selling the same thing. So like as like the foreigner walking by, they're like, buy my garlic. I'm like, yeah, yours looks okay. And like it's just like a fun way to communicate with people. It's just like I don't know, it's sort of like a video game. That's where I went with it. When you go in, it's like this fun game, tons of variety. You see something new every time. There's
And
guys like,
usually I picture some kind of giant fish like staring at you, or raw meat hanging like right in front of you. You have a whole bunch of like dead chickens or live chickens, and you could just pick them and stick them under your arm and walk away.
pretty much nailed it.
Oh,
once you leave the vegetable section, it's like it can get crazy. Yeah, oh, that makes me miss China so much. That's probably one of my favorite parts, literally. Like
really?
that, and I don't know, like there's that sort of market, and there's also like the watch place or the place where you buy your suits. There's this buying and selling atmosphere that you find yourself in a lot, and negotiating is totally normal. Like I can negotiate the price of the scallions, and they'd be like, yeah, it's normal to do that. Whereas
Wow.
here, it's completely different, obviously. So
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Are there any places where you live currently, like you're up in the Boston area, that make you feel like you're back in China? Is there like a little Italy, little China part where you can go to get a similar experience?
yeah, Chinatown in Boston, from what I remember, is, you know, it has some, you know, some similarities. Just with COVID though, I pretty much stayed inside.
Right.
So I really like, I video call my coworkers and friends like literally daily. So that,
They haven't been out since March. That's fine. Maybe next
yeah,
March.
right. Well, they've been out doing everything. Everything's opened up right now,
Oh,
essentially.
in
Uh,
China.
yeah, in China. So
Yeah, I think they're a little worried about the upcoming new year and what's going to be. So they're kind of taking extra precaution. I mean, you have to applaud China for how well they manage their citizens, especially at
yeah.
a time like this.
Mhm.
Pretty much, China says what happened, what needs to happen, and the citizens are like, okay,
Right. Exactly.
yeah. So let's get back to your cooking, because your videos that you put out, it has an effect on me. And I know I'm only watching it for like 45 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God, that is amazing and delicious. So who's videoing, and are you always cooking by yourself? And do you clean up after yourself? And who eats all that delicious food with you?
Now we're getting to the nitty gritty.
Oh my
Uh,
God. I had to get to that question because it's like every time I watch it, I'm like, who's going to eat that? And that looks amazing.
yeah. So for the videoing, it started with my brother helping me. Luckily, I have two siblings that I'm extremely close with that are very supportive, and we're kind of teaming this whole thing. So that's been game changer for me. So it started with my brother. Um, he also lives in China with me, so we were both quarantined together. I was like, "We're doing this, and you're helping me." So he was super helpful for the first probably 2 to 3 months, and then it's transitioned to my sister helping with the filming. So um, brother started helping filming, sister started 3 months after, and yeah, I rarely shoot any videos by myself, and that allows me to have what I hope is more of a cinematic type experience for the viewer. You have like movement as I'm cooking, which is pretty difficult to do if you're doing it by yourself. I sort of wish I had or I built the skill set to film by myself. That's something that, long term, who knows what's going to happen. And there's a lot of great creators who are able to make these amazing videos by themselves. So that's something that I think about in terms of usually when we're cooking, it's literally just me and my sister. We live in a house in Connecticut together, and we're back at my parents' house. We come back like on the weekends typically.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times, like you said, we'll make these crazy, massive things. None of it ever goes to waste. We'll either bring it back here and share it with people, or we have some neighbors there that we share it with. It's
Nice.
just like 12-year-old kid who like recognized me, kind of. He's a neighbor, and he'll drive by on his bike, like waving literally every day. So I'll like text him and have him come grab food every once in a while too.
Oh, that
Just
is awesome. You're a good guy to know in that respect for sure. And then
yeah, yeah. Try to. Thank you.
I know that you prefer charcoal grills. Is that something that you've always preferred? And
Um,
what's the
yeah.
benefit over
So,
gas grills? Aren't they a little bit harder to manage? You have to
mhm,
dump them and clean them and all that stuff.
yeah. I mean, I'm a firm believer that you should definitely take advantage of what you have and use what you like. There's a lot of people that are so strict charcoal. They're like, if you're using a gas grill, it's not grilling. Like to me, that's complete BS. You know,
Hmm.
so definitely use what you have. But personally, I've grown to really enjoy charcoal cooking. Um, not a lot of people think there's big differences with direct heat. So if you're literally just cooking a steak, you're not closing the lid, you're just putting it directly on top of either gas or charcoal. Very similar experience. If you're slow cooking something and you're adding wood and the charcoal setup, that's where a lot of those flavors are unique to charcoal as opposed to other ways of doing it. But I mean, I had used a charcoal grill my whole life. Like when I was in China, I lived on the 24th floor of a building. Definitely can't do charcoal there. So I had like a little electric sort of wood smoker, and it just made it work. Definitely wasn't the same as charcoal, but I've always just whatever I have, I make the best of it. I
Yeah.
try.
Oh, that sounds great. Who do you like bounce these ideas off of when you go and you take an easy bake oven and you start making a meal in an easy bake oven? Who are you talking to with that? Where maybe you say to your sister, "Hey, I have an idea. Go get your easy bake oven from the attic and let's see if this will work."
That's pretty much how it goes.
Oh,
You know, the idea generation to me is like the number one asset. Like executing on a cool idea is great, but that's something that we can always learn and get better at. But the great ideas, I think that's the one thing where I'm like 10 years from now, am I going to continue being able to think of hopefully great ideas? I think I will, but I do focus a lot of my energy and time on making sure that the ideas are solid. So whether it's, the car ride from my parents' house to the house that I'm living at, 2 hour car ride, will focus on just bouncing ideas back and forth. And like, how can we take this and connect it to this, connect it to this? The other big thing for me is as I'm falling asleep, that half hour is where I'm like sort of in a dream state, like falling like awake asleep. 90% of my ideas come at that point.
How do you extract them, pull them out? Do you turn over, write them down, or do you remember
Yep.
them in the morning? Yeah.
No, always immediately write it down. And even if it's like a tiny, like they usually like start as something small, and then throughout the course of a couple of days, I'll like just build the idea. It's not like, oh, just have an idea, let's cook it today. It's really a process, that
Right.
like a mental process that I go through.
I mean, that's great. And your stuff is quite unique. And I hope you keep like generating these ideas. My mind went in two directions. I guess the direction that is a little bit, um, does this become less fun and more work at any certain point when you see that you have to keep up and keep the momentum going? I know that we talked about your huge social media following, and is there pressure to continue creating and becoming innovative? Because there's so many people that are just super creative and you see them come out and you're trying to vie for the same audience attention. So do you ever get moments where you're just like, this is taking a passion project and turning it into like hard work at this point? Or are you still in the fun stage of it? I'm sure you have moments both.
Yeah, it sort of goes back and forth. I'm definitely still like, I could not think of anything I'd rather be doing. You know, as somebody who has for sure figured out what they love and being able to do it almost every day, I know that I've recognized that it's pretty unique. So I have nothing to complain about when it comes to like doing this and enjoying it. When it comes to like comparing myself to others and vying for attention, that's sort of like this a business thought process that I immediately go to. It's like, this is a business, and the best case scenario is that I have the attention, because 5 years from now, that attention is the asset in a lot of ways. So I'm always like thinking of how to improve, learning from other people, but I wouldn't say it's like not fun anymore because of that. It's still like this waking up. It's like, cool, we're going to try to, and a lot of the things I make, everything I make essentially is the first time I've done it typically. So it's like this endeavor. It's like, all right, let's try to make this work, make it look cool for the camera, make it taste good.
That's cool. Do you have someone do your cutting of the videos, or do you do that yourself? Does your sister or brother handle the social media posting? Because it is a full-time job in itself.
Yeah, so the editing I do myself right now. And that's the other thing. Like literally 6 months ago, I've never edited a video, never taken a video, didn't have Instagram. So like a lot of this is very new to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me realize like you can just learn a lot as you go. Not that I have like these incredible like the most insane quality, but like you can get to a level of quality by trial and error. So the editing I do, my sister is integral with the social media, like posting, and every once in a while helping me like just with the social media aspect, because really where I try to stay mentally is like the cooking. That's definitely my forte.
Right.
But it's a family affair. Like my brother helps with everything, like bouncing
That's
ideas
good.
off
That's
parents.
good that you have a trusted team around you to help execute on these great things. And I can't believe you've only been like this personality, this persona for 6 months. That's wild to think how quickly you've grown. What was the tipping point? What was the spark that I know you and Gordon Ramsay had some words with that meat birthday cake. So that must have been amazing attention for you to have gotten.
That was when it was like, when I saw that, it was like, wow, this is completely blew my mind. Like still when I think about that, obviously, like he's actually reviewed for the videos that I've made.
That's
So four
amazing.
separate, not like every time I'm like, is this really happening again? And like,
Have you seen your numbers jump each time he mentions?
Interestingly, there hasn't been a massive like moving of the needle when it comes to like follower count. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely increased it. I'm sure it does. It definitely does stuff. It does. But it's not like the craziest days in terms of growth have been on those days. There's been
Mm-hmm.
on those year days. But just for me, like even just being side by side, like everybody looks up to Gordon Ramsay, and like watched all his videos, learned a lot from him. He's just super entertaining also. So seeing your face next to him, for me, it's like I don't see myself as anybody whatsoever. And that is crazy, super cool.
Are your parents proud of you, or are they like, we spent so much money on this college education and you graduated with finance and, you know, you're doing your finance thing, but now you're just playing on the computer cooking?
It's funny. They're they've always been extremely open to literally anything. Like I could have, with 5 days left until I graduate, been like, I'm starting a business, can't graduate yet. All right, that sounds great. Like,
that's wonderful. That's super supportive for sure.
Yeah,
Probably proven yourself though. I would think that for a parent to have trust like that in their kid, you've probably proven yourself in the past.
Maybe they see that in me, which I hope.
Were you a troublemaker?
No. I don't.
See?
I don't think so. But like I've always done the random thing, like going to China, and it's never been like I've always kind of shot the shot, and I don't know, like there's even when other people might interpret success, like there, I don't always see it as like that was super successful. Like what I did in China, I don't necessarily feel like I made it. Whereas on paper, you know, I think a lot of the times you might hear people doing something or seeing what they're doing. Oh, they're 25 years old and they started a business. But when you're in the business and you're like, wow, are we gonna pay rent this month? Like how are we gonna make this work, that work?
Yeah, you know, there's it sounds like you similar to a lot of people with the whole imposter syndrome. From the outside, it looks like you are super successful, and we're going to keep that going because, you know, you're better than most, not as good as some. And, you know, we always have to recognize that. So for the good that you've done, even though it may not be as good as those that we compare ourselves with, that's an issue that we have to deal with inside. Because if you look back, there's a ton of people that look at you and are like, I can't believe what you've accomplished. It's amazing. Yeah. You know, they're not necessarily measuring your success, but they're measuring your milestones and what you've achieved. So we just have to feel good about getting to that place and not necessarily, you know, sustaining in the 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure life that then people think I'm successful, you know.
Exactly. 100%. And it's, to me, life is all about perspective. Like any issue that you could be having, it's like, one, am I healthy? Is my family like healthy? Great. If so, there's no issues. But then also when it comes to business stuff, it's definitely about perspective.
Right. Let me ask you about something that we talked about on Clubhouse. By the way, I'm new to Clubhouse, and I think I already need like an addiction society on how to not listen in on the discussions of Clubhouse.
I'm becoming the same way. Last night I was like doing the same thing.
Yeah, so. It's not good. It's good. It's really good, and at that point, it's not good. But I did hop into a food group that you guys were in. I too am creative in the food aspect of things. I post things that are a little bit unique, like the salty sweet combinations or leftovers or drinks that are, you know, that have pop rocks in it, a vodka tonic with pop rocks and a fiber gummy. Wow. You know, these are things that women my age, you need your fiber gummy and you need your drink. So combined it.
People my age need that. That sounds awesome.
I guess so. Fiber is good for all.
I was referring to the vodka tonic part, but.
Oh, yes. So you and I chatted in that group along with the other people, and I brought up the idea that with so many food videos out there and just people turning up the level of amazement, artwork that comes out of food preparation, less and less kids are actually cooking nowadays. A lot of them don't even know how to boil water. And I think that might be a result of, you know, society, in that there's 2 working parents. So it's not like one is at home cooking and teaching the kids how to cook and spending time and making grandma's recipes. There's a lot less time to dedicate to those family generational types of things. And grandparents who had these old school recipes are dying off. And plus the ease of ordering and ease of delivery and ease of meal kits are certainly, I don't want to say crippling the kids as they grow up, because there are many options, but we don't have any home economics classes. So kids just aren't able to cook or knowing how to cook as much, but they see these creations that are being made. And I just wonder if, you're thinking about that, or your food colleagues are thinking about that and trying to, teach them how to fish in that aspect.
Yeah, that was a great question when you asked that, because it was from the angle of like, are you actively making them a demographic, like actively going for those people and inspiring them to cook? And truthfully, with my content, it's been, I'm always trying to tweak my strategy, but it's been, what can I do to inspire the masses as opposed to go for like a segment of the market? But I will say it's trickled down to that demographic hugely. And really, like when I think about what I'm doing, like why I feel like it's successful, it's not because a video goes viral, because I'm realizing the term viral, like it really doesn't mean anything. Like you triggered an algorithm that put a video in front of people. It doesn't necessarily mean I've inspired people to do something or have created change. But so in some cases, I'll have a crazy video that gets tons of views, and in some cases, a video that gets a tenth of the views, but that's the video that was more like a specific recipe. People actually recreate it. And that's the one where I'll get 50 DMs from adults, from kids, all saying, wow, I made it. It was amazing. Or wow, I made it and my oven blew out. And, or like the best is like 2 days ago, I was talking to some kid. He like DM'd me and I was like commenting on his stuff, just like 10, 12-year-old kid or something. And his mom DM'd me saying, you have no idea the impact you've had on my kid. Like he struggles with anxiety, is all these things. And he feels like he's a celebrity, which I was like, wow, like that's incredible. And I realized that's what I want to be doing fully, like
That's
getting
awesome.
that type of relationship to happen. Because like we were talking about the imposter syndrome, like you see, and I'm sure there's a lot of creators that are so focused on just the virality and like that growth, but I think they might be missing out on like those little connections that's powerful to me.
That's awesome. So are you and your sister brainstorming, and your brother brainstorming some more of those types of things, just to further that cause? Because that's a great give back, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think, there's two ways to do it. You can focus the content around that demographic and that type of inspiration, or focus the like community building. Like a lot of I keep saying a lot of other people. I have no idea how other people do it, but I hear like when I respond to a DM, people say like, I can't believe you responded, which makes me feel like other people don't respond to DMs as much. So as opposed, like still creating the content that feels right to me, but making sure I'm like fostering relationships with people that care about it, as opposed like focusing on the one-to-one, like the unscalable element, as opposed to just focusing on the scalable element. And I hope that over years and years and years, focusing on that one-to-one can kind of do that for me. So you kind of see what I'm saying? It's like either going for the big or going for the small, and like balancing those two and making sure that I have a really good like focus on that side.
Yeah. And there will be a point realistically, if you're continuing to grow in the same way that you are, and you're getting audiences of all levels. You're getting, the moms like me from Facebook, you're getting the kids who are much younger on the TikToks and the Instagrams. Mm-hmm. So, these younger kids, you're going to have longevity, with them. And there will be a point where you're not going to be able to do one-on-one connections, with them.
Yeah, right. And to that, like, I really want to expand into more live style formats. So like, I'm probably in the next few days going to just open my own room on Clubhouse, tell like on my Instagram story, say, I'm in a room, there's 4 people. If you've ever wanted to talk to me, now's a great time. And hopefully do that consistently. And yes, like long term, like I'm sure, of course, someone like any real famous person, they can't continue to do the one-on-ones, but I'm definitely going to ride that out as long as I can, and find ways, whether it's live videos or, like I said, Clubhouse.
Yeah, or even on like the TikToks, and I don't know if TikTok has it, but Instagram, if you go live and answer questions, people can, chat with you. That's a way to get with the younger audience. I don't know who's on Clubhouse, like what the age is.
Yeah, right.
You might be getting people who want to hit you up for opportunities or in your food space or, that type of thing. But I think that you're headed in the right direction in terms of, connecting more with the masses in a real-time way. Just like this, like this, whatever we're talking about here is something that maybe people didn't know about you, and now they will know about you. It's humanizing, it's humbling. You're a real person. You can pinch yourself and feel it. And for people to see that, it's even furthers the connection and deepens the connection. And, in the environment that we're currently living in with the food space, a lot of it is the food art and what they call food porn.
Yeah.
And like everyone knows with anything porn, you look at it and you're not necessarily going to take it back and hone your own craft in order to achieve the same level that you're witnessing.
Right.
So, changing that and trying to empower people with the tools and the skills. I know, Rachel Ray had done a good job of that. And, a couple of other people teaching the basics. There you go. Host a basics class, knife skills with Max.
My brother literally brought that up yesterday. Like, we were having this big conversation. My one thing, like, and I probably have the wrong perspective on this, but it's like, I know what's worked. And in general, it's the crazy complexities. But like we're talking about, the people that are actually going to be inspired to take the action to cook their first meal, they can't go right to a steak cake. They need the knife skills. So I think that's a great idea.
Awesome. Okay, great. Who chefs do you look at? I don't even know if that's a sentence.
I got it.
I look at you as a chefluencer. You're like part chef, part cook, you're part influencer. So you're a chefluencer. I should register that word.
Should. I like it.
Not going to launch this video until I register that word. Who do you look up to? Who do you think is doing it well out there? And who do you aspire to be like?
Yeah, the term chef it's really interesting in the space I'm in because probably 50% of people, other content creators, are trained chefs, and they've been through 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears. And, they've earned their abilities and their audiences because of that in a lot of ways. And then there's people like me who didn't go that route. And so it's this interesting like relationship between my side and the other side. I definitely don't consider myself a chef. I consider myself someone who's, pretty creative and has a deep interest in it. And that's allowed me to succeed, as opposed to like toiling and refining. It's just been like, I've taken such a deep dive because I'm just so interested in it. So there's that distinction. Like the term chef is kind of a sensitive word in my area, but it's like people call themselves or don't call themselves. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
In terms of who I've looked up to, because I've never been one to go to like the 5-star restaurant, or like I do enjoy experiencing great food, but I've never been to a Michelin star restaurant. I've never known like this insane French chef and like been dying to try his XYZ dish. Right. For me, it's been, so Kenji Lopez Alt, he's big into food science. He's big into bringing food science into the home kitchen setting. So like really refining the craft for the everyday person like me. Like I'm not working in a restaurant where I have this big chef teaching me, but I have someone like him. He has a website called Serious Eats, and he has a book, and he just goes really, really granular with a lot of things that I probably would have learned if I was in that chef type setting. So he's somebody that I've always just looked up to a lot because he's, and like a lot, like a lot of my content is experiments and figuring things out like that.
Mm-hmm.
That influence has been like, he's sort of the role model, I would say.
That's great. There's also another person in the food science industry, probably before you came along, but he's still out there, is Alton Brown.
Mm-hmm.
He does an awful lot with food science. It's like Julia Child meets Mr. Wizard, you know, and he really breaks things down into its components and how things relate as they mesh together into a wonderful, you know, palate experience.
Definitely. Yeah, he's been an inspiration as well, actually.
Is there a particular dish that evokes emotion from you? Maybe it's like something your grandmother used to make, or the smell in the house is something that it's like, oh, you know, I know it's holiday now because I smell that in the air. Is there something that brings that out?
Yeah, the first thing the second part of your question made me realize that there definitely is. The smell of rosemary, 1000% brings me back to my grandma's house. She was cooking like potato. I think it was probably roasted potatoes with rosemary.
Delicious.
Amazing. I think I always just thought that's just the smell of her house because she was always cooking. It always smelled like that. But now I realize, I'm like, oh, wow, that was rosemary. And I love it. I mean, I use it all the time, but I still think of her every time I smell rosemary, which is super cool, I think.
That's nice. That's like such an awesome trigger that goes deep into our brains and pulls out some kind of memory of a person or a place or a time. Who knew that, you know, cooking or those types of things could evoke such things?
Yeah, it's that blows my mind. Every time I have that thought process of a smell, a color, or a place reminds me of a person, that's really cool to me.
Yeah. Human body. Crazy.
Really.
Is there something that you would like to see more people making that maybe used to be a dish from way back when, and you'd love to bring it to the forefront with like a current spin or your take on it?
You know, I think like steak has become a big, like a foundational component to the meat guy. You know, it's like the most common meat dish. And what I realize is there's a lot of undereducation on what makes like the different cuts, first of all, and then what makes a certain cut good compared to others, like in the grocery store. So like there's just a lot of misunderstanding, or not even misunderstanding. It's just nobody's taught people, or people haven't been receptive to whatever they've been taught. Because I think when a lot of people cook a steak, they're like, well, here goes nothing. Went to the store, found this for $5. Everyone's big thing. Well, hopefully it's the right temperature. Like, I don't know, we're cutting into it. Like, it's dark outside. Overcook this one, undercook this one, put it in the microwave. Like, I think cooking a steak is seemingly simple, but there's a lot that goes into doing it right. So I think in my head, like, and I've always thought this, it's probably completely impossible to make the perfect steak. Like, literally the perfect crust edge, like everywhere, perfect edge to edge. So it's kind of like this life goal of mine to like get close to perfection. I know it's definitely not possible. And then helping other people have better steak eating experiences. Hopefully all experiences, but like steak is the first thing people go to a lot of the times when it could be, you know, a date night, or just like it's a nice meal, but people haven't quite, you know, gotten it down fully. And I think that's something I hope to inspire to do.
That's
I don't know
great.
if I answered the question, but
No. It did. You're just taking steak to the next level. I'm the worst person when we go to a steakhouse because I'm the one who's like, no butter, please.
Oh,
No,
really?
I don't
No.
like melted butter. So I'm just the worst nightmare to anyone who's trying to make a steak for their customer properly. Like, you need that whole butter aspect of things, I suppose.
Sort of, yeah.
But I do my own at home. I actually had a podcast with how to make the perfect steak with my cousin, who's also a chef. Yeah.
No way.
But we
I guess
talked about the fact that it's, you know, you can even take a frozen steak and still make it good, you know, as long as you defrost it properly and do all that stuff. So there were certain techniques, but you're right. It definitely needs more mastery, and you can probably continue doing it as you go.
Mhm.
We have a temperature gauge that pairs with the phone called the meter. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've heard of that, but that's like an amazing tool for just people, whether you're an expert or you're not. It really tells you when to take it off, how long to rest, when it's ready to go. Um, Super for any listeners out there that just want a little cheat to, to know when your steak is done so it's not ruined. That's
Definitely. And I think just a thermometer in general, like a lot of people say, oh, use the finger, and like you'll know, like you're good enough to know. It's like, I'm not good enough to know. You're not good. No one's good enough to know. You might as well get it right. You're spending $20 on a steak. Like, let's try to
exactly.
optimize the process. So
Exactly. What's your thoughts on dry aged or wet aged, just aged in general?
I'm super, super interested in it, like to the max.
Really?
um,
Do you like how it tastes? Is it
yeah,
pleasurable?
I've done a whole bunch of dry aging like at home. So in China, I had a dedicated mini fridge where I always had something going. And dry aging doesn't have to just be like some people have had one dry age experience and they're like, wow, that was way too funky, like way too cheesy, didn't work out. That's probably because the amount of time was too long. Anywhere from you hit like day 28 to day 45, that there's a lot of change going on from a flavor perspective. Day 45 to 60, a lot of changes. So I would urge people to keep experimenting with it, because when you hit that sweet spot, and everybody has their own sweet spot, in my opinion. Mine's at 45 days. A lot of people's is. Um, Keep experimenting with it. And if it's too much, just go lower. Try 28 days. You can probably get a little bit of flavor difference at 25. Um, but personally, like that process, just I'm uncomfortably interested in dry aging steaks stuff.
Well,
So yeah,
I don't know if you've seen this before, but in the beginning days of Gary V, you know Gary Vaynerchuk? He used to do a wine show on YouTube. It was
yeah,
just him at a table and the bottles of wine. His dad owned a liquor store. Actually, I used to live down the road from where his dad's
kidding
liquor
me,
store was. Yeah,
really.
up in
He's in my ear 4 hours a day when I'm editing. So
oh, we'll talk about that after though, for sure,
yeah,
because I have to mention about the whole microdosing on motivation thing. But
yeah,
so it used to be Gary at a table and he'd have a bottle of wine and he would taste it and swirl it around and do his thing. And he'd be like, it tastes like a combination of like blood and pennies with a little overtone of dirt, and it was funny watching him describe these wines. And that was a good review, but he was like articulating the flavors that were hitting his palate and in the
yeah.
first sip and the finish and everything. I would love to see a video of like you doing an aging of X number of days by that number of days by that number of days, and then articulating what people can expect. Because when you go to a place that offers aged steak, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to commit. And if you're committing to that one age, that's your meal. You're paying for that whole thing. But if there was like a little
Makes sense.
sampler
Yeah.
type thing, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your take on each one of those bites as you go down the line.
I will. I love that idea. I'm 100% doing that. Um, yeah, I think that sort of content, I think, is, and like we were talking about, like different types of content and like viral stuff, like that stuff probably wouldn't go like get tons of views. And if I stay focused on the view counts, I'll miss out on building that awesome relationship with the person like you who would love to hear that, and I would love to say it too. So I think it's a great reminder of like finding the balance, and that type of content I think resonates a lot with me.
Yeah. But you're right. A lot of times you just have to stay focused. What's the goal? Keeping the momentum, keeping, the viewership up. A lot hinges on that. Maybe you get to a comfortable place where you can step back and do, some more types of these, nice to have side type projects.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's just finding a balance also.
Yeah.
Like Gary Vee would. It's great that Gary Vee, so we share a lot of the same understandings. Then, like, not caring about view count is paramount to his what he does. You know, he
But
definitely,
he talks out of both sides of his mouth though, because on the other side, he's like, you need to get their attention. So of course, you know, he wants you to just do
yeah,
whatever you can in order to continue being in front of people and getting their attention, but don't stress yourself out. I think he came under fire with the whole hustle and, you know, work 18 hours a day, sleep a few, grind it, do it, hustle. He did come under fire because then he changed his tune and he was more about, you know, I get 8 hours of sleep and I shut off my phone and go on vacation with my family. So, you know, he pushes on one side and then he like pulls back just a little just to make sure that he's not driving people to the edge and making people commit suicide because they're not good enough and they haven't made it yet and they're only 19 but they feel like a failure, you know. So it's that balance that he tries to maintain.
right. And I think at the end of the day, the focus is on happiness. So if going hard 16-hour days makes you happy, you should do that. But and he always talks about if making $30,000 a year and barely supporting, but loving everything, that should work too. So,
Yeah,
but
true.
two sides, sure.
Yeah. So you and I being on Clubhouse and then, you know, listening to all of these motivational people continuing to, you know, inspire us to do more and just a little bit harder. I wrote a blog about microdosing on motivation. And when you do it so often and you never let rubber meet road, you know, you're just listening and listening and listening. What's that?
Sorry to cut you off. I was just saying I didn't really internalize microdosing on motivation until you just said it, and I really like that. Now I understand what you mean by that, which I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. You can continue.
Oh no, that's all.
But yeah, it's like I think I assume people are listening to people like him for 12 hours a day and feeling motivated, and then it's like, well, what did you do about it? It's been 2 years of that, you know.
Exactly.
For me, like when I'm like editing and listening to that, I feel like I'm supercharged. I'm like, I'm doing it and I'm hearing new stuff. It's just like, it's good.
Yeah, you are definitely a good case study of, you know, making it work for sure. So where did you get that whole thing where you take the piece of meat and you smack it every single time?
My first ever video that I posted on the internet, I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I started doing it, and you know, either it started a trend or it was part of a trend because a lot of people do it too.
Okay.
It was fine. I don't really care. I've come on under a little bit of fire for that in the past, but I'm like, look back, like from the very beginning, like, I've been doing this for a while. I mean, to me, it literally doesn't matter. I think it's funny and fun.
Yeah.
And
I think it's funny and cute. And I think you did it with like a tiny shrimp or something at one point. You were like,
scallop.
oh, a scallop. Oh, it was so cute. Oh. So I saw you got into the dessert space a little bit. You were making a, I don't know, like a beef Wellington out of a cinnamon bun.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Are you getting into the dessert side of things and the beverage side of things?
I'd love to expand into that and not be too narrow where it feels like unorganic to do that. Because I'm more interested in food science as a whole than just like meat experiments. It's definitely like I'm more leaning to that side. But that I'm trying to think why I did that. Like a big thing for me is trying to find potential series when I create a video. You know, I make it once, hopefully it does very well, and I say like that was part one. Now I'm doing part two. So my thought was like, Will It Wellington could potentially be a series, and not just doing beef Wellingtons or like savory things. So that it was like the cinnamon roll Wellington, and I think there's still potential on that. The video did okay. That was my attempt at like, or the reason behind that was like, how can I make a Wellington people haven't seen before?
Right.
Potentially have a series to take from it.
That's kind of neat. I like it. I wanted to ask you another question back when we were talking about dry aging. Are there other proteins that you can dry age? Can you dry age chicken or, you know, some other type of muscle meat?
Yeah, you can do all sorts of like red meats. So Lamb is kind of middle there. Like venison would be normal to do. Something like duck you can do as well, more of like on the red side. For those types of meats, the time period's a lot shorter. So you can do probably like 2 weeks for duck would be good. But I mean, people do fish, and I'm excited to try that. You do like a 7-day age for fish. People are doing vegetables now. So
is that a thing? Is that a thing?
Blew my mind when I heard it, but I got excited about it. So I'm gonna look into that. You'd think they would rot, like an old vegetable doesn't.
Yeah, they would just dehydrate as opposed to, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about removing moisture and condensing flavor. So theoretically, like you could make a broccoli really taste like broccoli.
Yeah,
it'd be good.
Are you thinking of anything special for Valentine's Day coming up? Do you have like some crazy things in your pocket?
So I have, with my content, this is more towards TikTok, but there's like Instagram, I keep it more like cooking only. But TikTok, I do all sorts of. I'm not like to the point where I'm dancing, doing the TikTok dances, but like I do all sorts of like more entertainment style stuff within the food space. So I have some funny ideas. I'm not sure who's listening to this right now, and I don't want to go too public with the idea, but like,
everyone's going to be listening to it because you're going to share the podcast. So this is like you uncovered Max raw.
Yeah.
You don't have to, if it's confidential, we could always just wait and see. Everyone tune in.
It's all for fun. So it's not like it's crazy, but it's like just a play on Valentine's Day as somebody who is single, but cooking as if I'm not single type thing. So like just like a fun, it's really an entertainment type video that I think we'll hopefully get a kick out of.
That's good. Are there any recommendations that, like I can make for a Valentine's dinner? Probably something steak oriented.
Yeah, to me, steak and red wine is like the go-to.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried those little smokers? It's like almost the size of the microphone. It has a tube.
Mm-hmm.
I tried smoking a glass of scotch once to see if it would take on the smoky flavor.
Did you notice anything? Any flavor differences?
A little bit. I don't know, like if a liquid would absorb the smoke as much as maybe something porous. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Well, so liquids have like not a film, but they have a protective barrier where smoke can't really be absorbed as well. That's why if you're doing like smoked butter or like smoked water for ice cubes, you have to mix it every once in a while to like that. Yeah. And also the amount of time it's in the smoke is relatively small. But I think those things are cool because if you're certain, like let's say it's for your date or like your husband, wife, whatever it is, like you have that smoke thing going, and when you open it and you give them the cocktail or like the steak, that experience of the first taste with the smoke, I think that's more of where it lies as opposed to like really getting a smoky like drink to the last sip.
Yeah, that's true.
I think for Valentine's Day, I think a cool change up, or not change up for people, but going with a porterhouse. So you have like the filet on one side, the strip on the other. I think it's kind of a romantic steak. It's always seemed that way to me. You get the really lean with a little bit, more marbled. That's what I would do.
That's cool. If you were to be able to choose like two people to come to your place and you guys would cook together and hang out together, any two people, dead or alive, who would it be?
Probably one would be Phil Mickelson. He's always been someone I look up to. He plays golf. I'm sure most people know him. He seems like a really good guy and just, I don't know, cool guy. And then honestly, it's the cliche answer, but probably Gordon Ramsay. I'm so interested to hear like.
I knew it. I totally knew it.
Just be like, I wonder if he like knows who I am. Like, I just want to know that, like, what he thinks about me.
I think he does.
He's kind of every video he's like thrown shade at me. It's been like probably for fun, but like.
That's the best compliment. That's awesome. So he would make a good engaging guest. I was watching that whole Bert Kreischer cooking show And it's just so funny when you get like 3 comedians in a room and they're just, like shooting the shit over food and, fun and just socializing. So
Yeah.
that's interesting that would be your crowd for
Yeah.
an
I think that's
interesting evening.
fun.
What would you cook?
I'd probably let Gordon Ramsay cook, to be honest.
You have the night off. Perfect.
Yeah. I'd be playing golf with Phil. I don't know. I'd be interested just to hear what their favorite dishes are and like see I don't know, definitely learn from Gordon would be the main thing. But
Yeah. So maybe it'll be a potluck. Maybe everyone will bring a dish.
that could be cool. One thing I like to ask people is what their favorite dish is. Can I ask you that? What your
I
ultimate
love the whole beef Wellington thing. I
really?
love the salty, hard texture of the dough on the outside and then the mushrooms and the filet on the inside. It's just such dense flavors. Like filet itself, because it's so lean,
Yeah.
the flavor is much more flavorful to me than a fatty other type of steak, the filet really. So yeah, the Wellington series that you do always piques my attention. I've made that on many occasions for
Really?
yeah.
Do you use a thermometer or do you go by time? Because that's an interesting one for
I
that.
used to go by time, and it came out okay. But now with that meat thermometer, the meter, and
Yeah.
it pairs right to the phone, you can't mistake it. You can't, and especially since a fillet is so uniform,
Yeah.
the thickness, it's almost like a pork loin in terms of its shape and size. So wherever you place it is really kind of where it's going to measure up in terms of doneness.
Yeah.
I'm already salivating. I'm like hungry. I just ate breakfast. But these conversations and watching your videos. So how much time are you actually dedicating to your finance career nowadays? Or is this, something that you're focused on right now, the cooking side of things?
Yeah. It kind of depends on the week, I would say. But the finance stuff is on the China hours. So like our office opens at 10 p.m. my time or 9 p.m., like whatever it is. So it's definitely been a balance staying engaged in both of them. Um, I'm trying to just maintain a standard of what works and a level of quality where I'm still getting everything done correctly. But definitely the focus during the day at least is on this stuff. Catching the daytime to get some good shots. Lately, I've been starting late, so I don't even know if that's true. But the focus is definitely on the cooking stuff right now.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on what's been going on with like Reddit and GameStop and all of that stuff? And now the regulators are starting to think that, hey, maybe we should regulate this whole thing. But the common folk are like, this is a free society. We're just doing what we do. But I think the whole frenzy got people up in arms and a lot of the big players were losing their shirts. So.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't dabble in that sort of trading anymore. Like I've learned a lot through that stuff, and I think a lot of people are getting excited about it because it's in the news. So like, oh, I want to take part in this massive upside that's going on. But I see it as, I mean, it's stock manipulation. If hedge funds were doing this, we would put those people in jail. It happens to be that the common folk are coming together. Not that it's illegal, but I see it as manipulating a stock price because fundamentally it's not worth it. Everyone knows it's not worth that price. And there's organizations coming together to bump up that price. So you see a trading halt happen, which means that people, with Robinhood, they're unable to buy into it.
Right.
We see trading halts all the time. If gold can go down enough where the gold mining companies, they just halt all of them on like the major brokerages. So I've seen it before. So I have a different perspective than a lot of people who are like, I deserve to have bought into this, but I can't now because Robinhood isn't letting me. And maybe it is illegal what Robinhood did. I haven't really looked too much into it, but at this point,
Yeah, it was in their terms of service, basically. So it's not illegal per se.
Exactly. Like,
yeah, that's fine. Today would have been a good day to short GameStop, though. It's like down 70% since Friday.
Yeah.
Not today, but on the other days when that
Yeah.
was going down.
I stay away from it. Everybody asks me because they know that I'm in the financial industry, and I'm like, 90% of people are going to lose.
Yeah.
Want to, because timing is everything, and timing is impossible when it's your first time. You're getting emotional about it, and you see what could happen. The potential's there.
Yeah.
Just my opinion also. So
no, it's a crazy market. We'll have to see where this nets out.
Yeah.
How about crypto? What's your thoughts on that? And then I'll let you go film some videos for the day.
Yeah, I think I'm going to join a clubhouse in a little bit too, which I'm excited about.
Taking your time.
Totally good on time, by the way. I'd rather be doing this. Bitcoin and crypto, like that's something that we had heard a lot about when it was first coming out, when it was first gaining popularity, when Bitcoin was way, way, way down. There wasn't all these, alternative coins out there. And it was never something we've done for clients. That's just not the type of investing we do. We're more long-term retirement planning. If they ask about it, we'll give a recommendation, like keep it under 5% of your net worth. If you're, in the high net worth range, it's probably good to be more careful. I think there's definitely long-term potential for blockchain and those technologies. I don't take part in trading them enough to be like, oh, I think Bitcoin's going to 100,000. Like that's definitely not me. I do like diversification, and if you can pick up some of it as a small percentage of your net worth, because there is going to be some use of blockchain, and it'll probably be related to probably Bitcoin. I think holding some is always a good idea to hold. Always hold some gold. I would always hold precious metals. Always be diversified. And if you're into it, buy some Bitcoin, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Reddit came for the silver also. So, just when you think you're safe, they're out there.
Yeah. Precious metals have been a crazy one too recently, but I think not that I'm giving like investment advice over here, but
no, we're just talking shop.
Yeah. I think just diversification is always key. When there's hype around it, like when the people start talking about it on Reddit and in the news, like silver became a thing. It was down like 10% the other day when I looked at it.
Yeah. When the masses start talking, it's already too late. You missed the boat.
The second when you stay away. So
yeah. All right. Well, what's on tap for today? Any besides for Clubhouse? Are you cooking anything? What's your next meal? Gonna get the scoop. Gonna get the inside scoop right here, right now.
Yeah. So by the time people listen to this, it might be out already. But I have this. I'm very fortunate to have access to really unique cuts of meat, stuff that 6 months ago I'd be like, "There's no way I'm buying that. That's out of my price range." But I have this incredible 7-bone Wagyu tomahawk in my fridge. Every time I go by it, I open. I'm like, "All right, still there." Like looking at it. It's one of the craziest cuts of meat I've ever seen. So I'm gonna cut into that. Probably end up being tomorrow. I'll do some stuff on the story, and I have some longer form YouTube ideas for it.
Do you get nervous whenever you start cooking now? Because it's being videoed. Are you like, oh God, I hope I cut this right. I hope I cook this right, because then I have to start from scratch again.
I wouldn't say I get nervous. The one thing that a weakness of mine is if things don't end, like I have a very high standard in my head for what I want it to be. And if after I cut into it, like I overcooked it by 2 degrees or like under, like I get pretty I wouldn't say pretty, I do get a little bit self-critical, and because I want it to be as good as I can for the people that are watching. But I'm never like,
anyway. Do you put it out there anyway?
Usually it ends up, it's like off by 1 degree, not 5 degrees. And in my head, I'm like, that's going to move the needle. But then I look at the content, I'm like, that's perfect. That's fine. But in the heat of the moment, when I'm like, I just spent 11 hours filming this beef Wellington pizza, there's no going back now. So in those moments, I can be a little self-critical, but generally speaking, I don't, not that I'm overly confident, but I don't like lack the confidence as I'm doing it that I'm nervous. So.
Well, this is great. Keep putting stuff out. I mean, we love you. My household, we're all age ranges. We think you're great. Their friends think you're great. So
Really?
keep
Oh,
doing what you're doing, and give me a call if you want some more ideas. Or maybe I'll just shoot you a message or something if something comes up. You and your
definitely. Yeah, let's stay in touch. And yeah, like the fact that your family is watching it to me is really crazy and cool. And if people have feedback, or if anybody listening to this has feedback and is loving it, hating it, loving certain points of what I'm doing, definitely shoot me a DM. And yeah, we can talk about it.
And I love the fact that you guys are a close knit bunch. You said with your sister, your brother, your parents are proud of you. I mean, you're like good family, good bones in that house.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a testament to them, to my parents, but
Yeah,
I definitely feel pretty blessed to experience this. So
that's good. Well, everyone else who's listening, if you want to subscribe to One Take with Jess, please do. It's on Instagram, and YouTube is the Kona Benelli channel, but we're going to be renaming it One Take with Jess. Please hit subscribe, thumbs up, 5 stars, review, whatever anyone does to let me know that this was helpful, inspiring, empowering, challenging, educational, whichever, entertaining. And hopefully, Max, you'll share it as well. We're all trying to grow and trying to just get the word out to as many people as we can, and help better the lives of people.
absolutely.
So thank you
so
for
much.
everything. What's that?
I just said thank you. I appreciate the time, and this was a lot of fun.
This was fun. Thank you for agreeing to this. Greatly
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to end the recording now, but thank you for your time and have an amazing day.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Let's stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks.